What is up, Razorback Nation? Good afternoon. We are back at you with this episode of Razor Recap, getting you caught up this weekend on everything that's went on. And before we dive in, we got to thank our friends over at Razor Pigs. Looking good never felt so fun. Razor Pigs is the Arkansas-born brand, bringing some serious style to the golf course, tailgate, and everywhere in between. From high-quality polos to head-turning hats, they've got what you need to rep the natural state with pride. Founded right here at home and now run by a Razorback-loving family, Razor Pigs is where comfort meets cool. So go hog wild and shop Razor Pigs today at razorpigs.us. And our friends over at Scarlet Letter, Arkansas's very own handcrafted spiked seltzer. You can check them out today if you're in Northwest Arkansas. You can go check out the Core Brewery Tap Room where you can get Scarlet Letter and all its various flavors, as well as their new hard teas that they just released as well. So go check them out. And man, what a big weekend for Arkansas sports and specifically baseball. While everyone else was popping fireworks, Arkansas baseball was popping the transfer portal this weekend.
Yeah, man. The third one today with from Lamar Ruiz.
Yeah.
They're just going. And the thing is, they're replacing people. If you want to see who they think is going to be in the MLB, just look at who they're getting. I mean, TJ, what was it? Toppin? No, or is that
TJ Pompey?
Pompey, yeah. Toppin is he plays basketball. Pompey, like he looks like a pretty good, like he could either probably play outfield or he may even play he plays infield, but I'm thinking about what he could do for Arkansas. Or he could be another option there at shortstop. And then today with Ruiz, he could very well, I mean, if you look at the numbers between him and Davalon, it's almost exactly the same. If anything, he has a little bit better batting average. Not nearly as many home runs, but look where he played. He played he played right field, not left field, but he was also a leadoff hitter, probably one of the best in the country, along with Charles Davalon. It's just they're just reloading, dude.
I mean, it's to that point where, I mean, with DVH, it's hard to not expect this. You go into the transfer portal and you're like, well, all these other teams are making moves, and you're like, well, it's like that meme where a guy's poking at something with a stick, and he's like, come on, do something. They've got things in the works, and you just got to give them a minute.
Yeah, and we'll see how they end up playing going into the SEC and whatnot. There's always that big step and that big question, but I don't know, man. They're like, I did a piece for Best of Arkansas Sports the other day, kind of seeing who's coming in and whatnot. And I compared it with Tennessee because I was just part of the piece, but I really focused on pitching. But I'm just saying, like, our fielding and batting, they're doing the exact same thing. They're just getting these guys in and rotating them in, like nothing even happened. Plus, you still got the kids that played underneath, who didn't really start this year or didn't get to play as much. So
or
yeah,
injuries.
they're just injuries. I mean, like Nolan Souza, like he's not going anywhere. How do all these pieces connect with each other? Because you can only play 9 guys at a time, right?
Right. And one thing to remember with some of these guys coming into is a couple of these guys are draft eligible. So, they may or may not make it to campus. So that's one of the things to consider, with how the baseball transfer portal works is, the draft is in about a week. So, part of these guys, will they even make it to campus? And that's probably why you see a couple of guys at multiple guys at the same position talking about, the guy from Ball State a few weeks ago, Grego. And then now you got TJ Pompey that's coming in from Texas Tech that also plays shortstop. So, it's either Dave's going to have some competition there. I don't blame him there. But also in case, hey, maybe these guys don't make it to campus. So you've got, those spots covered.
Right. Exactly. And I mean, you got to kind of do that. You gotta have those, um, you got to have those contingency plans too. Like I think one of the things that they're hedging for is if Justin Thomas ends up going. Um, there's some mock drafts that have him going in like the 7th round or something like that, and then some of them don't have him going at all. And
Right.
who's to say that he even wants to stay in the draft, or because they can do that, right? They can pull their name out. It's not like baseball
Well,
or football or basketball.
yeah. And part of it too is, well, they can get drafted, but they don't necessarily have to sign. It's weird.
Yeah,
Where, especially guys like Justin Thomas, he's a junior. So, he can kind of use leverage of like almost as a bargaining chip of saying, hey, I want X amount, or, I can go back to school. And that's the thing with those guys that are draft eligible sophomores or juniors. They have that kind of contingency of like, if they don't get what they want, then they have the option to go back to school and kind of use that, as a bargaining chip on their side. And so
yeah,
we'll see what happens. I would love for Justin Thomas to come back, but you see, all these transfers Dave is going after. If they make it to campus, I think we'll be in good hands here.
yeah. So, yeah, it's pretty cool to see all these moves and whatnot. But yeah, I don't know, man. We'll just have to see and wait to see if they pan out, because that I've talked about it all season long that baseball is just almost a game of craps. There's you don't know what the outcome's going to be. You just try to hedge your bets as much as possible.
Hopefully
So
you roll that 7.
right, hopefully.
Yeah, so let's dive in and break down some of these guys. We were just talking about the Texas Tech infielder, that TJ Pompey that transferred in, can play shortstop, but also can play some outfield as well. He's a super talented guy, but his big season his big issue that he had over this past season is staying healthy. He played third base for Texas Tech some as well. He hit 348 average. But he only played 19 games this past season to a wrist injury. 19 games, 79 plate appearances, and last played in March. So, they said he was in the dugout, had a brace on his wrist. So wrist injury for, infield players isn't ideal. So he's a guy that has tremendous upside, but has had issues staying healthy in 25. But in 2024, when he played a full 55 game season, he hit for 279, had 49 RBIs, 10 home runs, and was named freshman All-American. He's 6'4", 205, and he's rated as the top third baseman and number 16 overall transfer by 64 Analytics. Major League Draft analysts have him as a first round upside in next year's draft. So he's not draft eligible, so he's a guy that will be making it to campus. But if he can take that leap, maintain and stay healthy, he has the chance to be a key piece for next year's roster, especially with more than likely Brent Iredale getting drafted as well. So he could be a guy that you plug in at third base to replace Iredale.
Yeah, especially like because he's mostly played he's kind of played all over the diamond, right? But just him being 6'4" and just massive like that, you bet he can sling the baseball. So if they have to replace Iredale, that's a great place for him. The batting average, I feel like a few weeks with Nate Thompson, they could probably get it up, because before his injury he had a pretty good average, but if they want to do what they did this year, which probably isn't going to happen, having like everybody bat over 300, they'll need to work on that. But still, he was, I don't know if you said this, but as a freshman, he was, perfect game and National Collegiate Baseball Writers Association freshman All-American team, and then he was a preseason All-American for perfect game. So the guy's good. We know he's good. That injury is a little bit worrisome, but it's not like a pitching injury. Like if like with Aiden Jimenez, we're still worried going into the season, even though it happened really early season with Oregon. With these guys, I mean, I don't feel like it's going to affect them that much heading into this season.
Right.
So I'm not super worried. I'm just, like I said earlier, I'm just trying to figure out where he comes back, where he goes, or where he plays if he does get here. And then, like you said, if Brent Iredale doesn't leave, what does he do? Like, does he just play a backup spot, or does he maybe play a DH role? Or, it's kind of cool seeing the different places and think about the different places they can play and, the different options they have to look.
Yeah, and that's big too, because you're talking about those injuries, like Nolan Souza, for instance. Like, he's a guy that, like, it's not a significant injury. Yeah, significant as in, like, it's not as super long-term rehab as like you mentioned, Tommy John for pitchers. He just has to let his shoulder heal, like, naturally, more than going in and having super significant surgical procedures to repair all of the things when you have Tommy John in the elbow. So he more or less is going to get back to strength and just has to get through that healing process. Whereas kind of same thing for pitchers, but it's a little bit more in depth because they have to do a lot more work compared to, letting some bones heal and things like that for Souza. So, a big piece that could play big next year for Arkansas. Arkansas goes after some outfielders as well earlier in the week. Missouri State picked up Missouri State outfielder Zach Stewart. He was a guy that played 3 seasons for Missouri State, posted a .269 batting average this past season, hit 11 home runs, 8 doubles, 37 runs, 31 RBIs. He is a left-handed hitter that primarily played right field for the Bears. In the road game against Arkansas, he went 2 for 5 with a home run and 2 RBIs. So, we've seen him up close and in person, what he can do. So, against us. So he's a guy that's going to come in, potentially will replace one of those corner outfield spots. Like we talked about, more than likely you're losing Davlon, you're losing Maxwell. You can stick him out there if you don't move Cahillo out there, because he's another option too. Unless you're going to keep him DH. And like you said, there's a lot of scenarios here to talk through with that. But another, experienced guy that's coming in can give Arkansas some depth. Arkansas will hopefully get Zach Stewart back to how he was hitting and performing in 2024, because as a sophomore at Missouri State, he hit 21 home runs and hit 300 in his breakout season. So it took a little bit step back this past year, but maybe he can come back in and get back to that form and cut down on the strikeouts, because he did rack up at quite a large amount of strikeouts with 195 and 161 collegiate games so far. Improving on his career on-base percentage of .373 is going to be big on, swing and misses and making sure, you're not swinging at, bad pitches or whatnot. So hopefully this coaching staff gets him in here and we'll be able to work on some of those things with him.
All these smaller schools, and it doesn't even matter what sport it is, it's almost a double-edged sword to go in and play a good team, very well. Because when you do that, you have these kids who, play well, and those coaches are like, hey, you played well against us, you might be, not on the correct team, if you know what I mean.
Right.
So it's just funny how many times that Arkansas will play a team, and then later on, after the season's over, they'll go and they'll take that person from that team. It's just, and it happens all over the sport. It's not just an Arkansas thing, but yeah, I think he'll be good. I think he'll be more. Arkansas has just got a lot of people that they can put out in the outfield right now. I feel more or less he's going to be a depth depth piece, or if he can get the hitting up like he was and look like he was a couple years ago, maybe a DH role. It's hard for me to see him cracking a lineup with all the other talent that they're bringing in. So
Well, and part of
yeah,
it, this
but
picture will get a lot more clear after we get through the major league draft and we figure out, what guys are going to do if they're going to sign their contracts or come back. That's going to help clear out a lot of
true.
things when we're talking about next year's roster construction. But another guy Arkansas's got coming in is a kid from Marshall, Makai New. He spent 2 seasons with New Orleans before he played for the Thundering Herd last season, where he had for 276, 52 RBIs, 15 home runs as a junior. He spent most of the season playing shortstop, but his preferred position is center field. So another outfield competition guy that can play multiple spots. Like we've talked about a lot of these guys, it seems like, that's the type of guys Dave's like to go out and recruit, is guys that can play multiple positions. That way, in case you do have an issue with injury, you can plug and play guys that have played in multiple spots before. But, we talked about Arkansas kids playing in summer ball. Well, he's also playing in Cape Cod, where he's been on a streak this summer so far. He's batting .279 with a 1.002 OPS in 69 plate appearances, and he leads the Cape Cod League with 6 home runs. So, like Justin Thomas, he is draft eligible and could sign professionally. The hope is that one of the 2 center fielders will be back next season. So, whether it's JT or New has committed to Arkansas. So one of those guys, hopefully you get one of them on campus for next season.
Yeah, that's kind of where he's hedging his bets. Still, I think there has to be a whole lot to go wrong for him to like mess up what they've already brought in. So I would say even if both of those guys moved on, they still have a couple people who could probably play that outfield position still. Especially if you have like Cahillo playing outfield as well. So I don't know. It, like you said, it's kind of hard to like. All I know is I'm glad I'm not a collegiate baseball coach, because there's no way I can wrap my head around all of these different options and stuff right now. It's a mess. It's a mess. Like, I feel like it's the best system for players, but it's probably the worst system for coaches.
Right. And that's fair. I mean, it's tough because it's like, and this is the only sport where you really have to deal with that as much because of how the draft is structured and when it falls. Because it's like not only you have to deal with transfer portal guys that could potentially commit, but could also get drafted high enough and they're like, oh, I'm going to go in the draft. You also have to do that with your high school signees as well.
Yeah,
they're committing to coming here, but the draft falls before it's even time for them to get on campus. So if they get drafted high enough, you're not even going to see them either. So it's like almost like that double-edged sword you're talking about there, where you have to balance, your incoming freshmen with your transfer portal and the major league draft that happens before kids even start to get on campus.
Yeah, that's rough because you have all these with the house settlement and everything, all these strict roster caps, So I don't even know. We may see a change in how commit. We'll have a more like what do you call it? Silent commits more than we will have like just coming out and saying, hey, I'm going to come here. Because one, the kids, if you silent commit, they won't know that the other people are committing. So you have a little bit more wiggle room with saying, hey, we're going to pull this offer and whatnot. It kind of saves you face a little bit. And it's just, I don't know, man. It's just, I feel like going forward is going to be more in the shadows than it is right now, if that makes any sense.
Yeah, 100% there. And then finally, the last one that kind of wraps up this weekend for Arkansas is just this afternoon, Lamar right fielder Damian Ruiz decided to commit to Arkansas after visiting earlier in the week. As a junior this past season, he hit for 388 with 46 RBIs and was named the Southland Conference Player Hitter of the Year. He's 6'1", 170, hit 7 home runs, stole 14 bases, and had nearly twice as many walks to strikeouts with 50 walks and 27 strikeouts. You know, he hits the mark in a lot of sections and statistics for a leadoff hitter for Arkansas, you know, especially if you're losing Davlon, a guy that can kind of come in. And I think like what you talked about earlier in the show, Ruiz is very much, if not a little bit better of a hitter in terms of what he did in his conference. Now, whether that makes the jump to SEC caliber ball, that's kind of like the question mark for Davlon coming to the season. You know, he had this great season at Florida Gulf Coast, but can that game translate to the SEC? It did. So now you've got another really talented guy from a smaller school with Ruiz. Can he translate what he did in the Southland Conference to the SEC for Arkansas?
Yeah, and I mean, that's, if you looked at Twitter, most everybody was extremely excited to see what him coming on, and so I don't know. It just depends. I don't know. I wasn't as excited as what I was. I was excited for Pompey than I was for Rees, just because Pompey's in the Big 12, and if you're talking about ranking conferences, I feel like Big 12 is right there at number 2 behind the SEC. Kind of maybe going back and forth with the ACC depending on what year it is. With Reed, I don't know. I'm not too excited to get on campus. They kind of prove it to me. I'm not saying it won't be extremely good. I think he could replace Davlon. Maybe a tough hitter, he'd be as good as one was, or you know what, he could potentially have the same stuff. We don't know, but I think the idea, though, I see the strategy that Dave Van Horn is going is trying to implement going after Ruiz, and I like it. He saw what worked this year, and he's trying to repeat it.
Yeah, I mean, it's going to be interesting to see where everything falls, and you know, depending on what happens in the draft, you know, if Dave has to go back to the portal and maybe another 1 or 2 pickups, you know, another guy that has had some connections or potentially talked about for Arkansas is the kid that entered the transfer portal from Texas, Will Gasparino. You know, he is ranked as the top center fielder in the transfer portal. Hit 242 with 13 home runs as a sophomore this past season. But you know, he's more known for his glove than his bat, and you know that's what Dave likes to go after, is guys that can be solid defensively and then can also, you know, if you've got the defense, you can work with these guys and get their hitting and their average up. You know, he is a guy that you know, we saw him in person, played against Arkansas. So he's one that he's 6'6", so he's a big guy that could come in. And, you know, if you do happen to lose Thomas or New that's transferring in, he's another guy that Arkansas could go after to put in that center field spot. But who knows? Another name to watch out for in the outfield, if we're talking about outfield spots, is Indiana transfer Andrew Wiggins. He's the top right fielder according to 64 Analytics and the number 13 overall portal prospect after posting a .867 OPS as a sophomore. He kind of had a similar path as Zach Stewart we were talking about earlier. Had a great 2024 season before, this season not being as good. And as a freshman, he 6'4", 225, hit 309, and then, wants to get back to that level. So you look at some that translating at that level. Look at Logan Maxwell. He had 5 home runs in 3 seasons at TCU, and then this past season at Arkansas had 13 home runs.
Right. And everybody wants to, they want to say stuff like Thompson, but it is these kids do come in who you're kind of like not super excited about, because even Vahiva Aloy was not batting the way that he was batting this year 2 years ago at Sacramento, right?
Right.
He does develop these kids. Now there's the clutch gene that I don't know why Arkansas just doesn't have. They had it much more this year. Like runners wasn't an saw hit very well. They have in the last 2 or 3 years. And I think that is a little bit about the type of people they brought in. Not only were they good defensively, but they were athletes. Like they could steal bases. They could, do a little bit more extra in the small ball category than what we've seen in the past. They weren't just big arms and good gloves, or good gloves. And I think that's what they're going for this year. So I have no worries about Nate Thompson's ability to get these guys where they need to be at the plate. So yeah, so even these like Ruiz, who is a very good batter at the Southland, conference level. If he comes here and spends an off season and maybe a couple weeks into the regular season, you may see him start to go off again. I doubt it'll be at the 388 like he was last year, but I think he has a good opportunity as well as anybody else to do well this year. And I think Nate Thompson is one of the reasons that is why it's like that.
Yeah. I mean, it's one of those things we'll have to wait and see. And if these guys make it to campus, like I said, a week from today, you'll have the 2025 Major League Draft take place in Atlanta, over the All-Star Week festivities down there. So a lot of these the roster and the path for, putting together next year's squad will be much clearer once we know who gets drafted, what round they get drafted, because that's a big part of it. Because I think there's some statistics out there you can look at, statistically, if a guy is drafted in this round or later, more than likely they're coming back to school if they have eligibility. So,
right.
So we'll have to wait and see. But what the work that this Dave and this coaching staff's put in the transfer portal is making me feel better about next year's roster on top of what you already have. What you're getting back, and some of those guys that maybe aren't draft eligible yet. Ryder Helfrich coming back, Cam Kozel, several other pieces to this roster. And then, I still think there might be a pickup or two on the pitching side of things. We talked about more outfielder type of play, but, this pitching staff, they may pick up 1 or 2 more arms. We've talked about they picked up a couple already. So it'll be nice to see. But, speaking of existing guys on this roster, is announced this past week, you had 3 Arkansas Razorbacks playing for the U.S. national team that will be playing in Japan this week. So you have Cole Gibbler, Ryder Helfrich, and Gabe Geckel, all that made the cut, if you will, for the U.S. team that will be heading over to play overseas. So, and that is actually the most players on a roster from a single school this past year. So, Arkansas being represented very well on Team USA.
Yeah, and I mean, can you blame them? Arkansas had probably the best batting lineup in the country, even though it didn't end well. Like 1 through 9, everybody you could have picked probably anybody on that list, and came away with it. And then probably Probably Gabe Gackel is the only one with eligibility left, or that's not going to the MLB draft. That probably would have been a good pick. I don't know if anyone else really other than him would have had a much of a chance. But batting wise, yeah, that was a great year last year. So I'm not surprised to see that number of Arkansas players going at all.
Yeah, you love to see it. So, that's going to be hopefully those guys have success over there. We've talked about a few guys playing in the summer leagues. One of the guys that has been doing well is one Brenton Clark for Arkansas. He has been doing really well in the Cape so far this offseason. And his numbers have been kind of very impressive, to say the least. A guy that you didn't see a ton in playing time this past season, but has been doing well in the Cape. So he's a guy that, as far as when we're talking outfielder spots, he's another guy to watch. He's get out of Texarkana. Was the number 64 outfielder in the class of 2024. So he's a guy that, if some of these other guys decide to go, he's another one that is developing down in the Cape where, we've seen guys make huge leaps. Ryder Helfrich is a perfect example. He went down to the Cape last year, and just look at what he was able to do this year. And then, with a much better bat. Cahillo is down there as well. And so I'll be interested to see, when these guys come back, are they making that outfield spots more competitive with some of these guys that are coming in via the transfer portal?
Yeah, I'm probably. Yeah, I mean that's the whole reason they go to summer ball, right? Is to get better, and they keep playing baseball. Yeah, you just like to see it. You like to see these kids, especially. I mean, Texarkana. Is he from the Arkansas side? No, he's from the Texas side. Still, I mean, Texarkana, Texas is about as much Arkansas as you can get in Texas. So, for all intents and purposes, he's an Arkansan. So it's great to see someone like that, develop. It's kind of like watching like Ben Bybee or Will McIntyre, any of these guys who are Arkansas kids, come up and develop and be good. So I wouldn't even, he's probably playing for something a little bit more than the other kids. So I wouldn't even be surprised to see him, crack that starting lineup. But I don't know. Like you said, it's hard to even contemplate where they're going until all of it's over. But that, and then Cahillo Aloy, I think how is his? I haven't really followed summer ball yet. So how is he looking so far? Because I know, like, if he can get back into the swing of things like he was at the beginning of this year, I don't see him going into another slump like he did. At least not in a month slump that he had.
Right. Yeah. It's one of those things where hopefully, he can be more consistent throughout the season. Let's see.
Who else is down there, by the way? Is it just him and Clark down there in the Cape, or is there a couple more people?
Let's see.
Well, Cole Fisher's
So,
down there too. And Kojo.
Aloy, Hunter Dietz, Colin Fisher, and Tate McGuire.
Wait, is this the right
So Brenton
year?
Clark is actually in the California Collegiate League, not the Cape.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Yeah. And Aloy, he's batting 381. So I mean, he's doing a lot better. On base 480, slug is 471. He's got a home run, a double, 5 runs, 5 RBIs, 3 walks, 7 strikeouts in 7 games. So strikeouts are still there with him. Hopefully that's going to get a little bit better. But there was a lot at the end of the season where he was just watching pitches, go right through the zone and didn't swing at it or anything. So we'll have to see. And then let's see. From what I'm seeing, Koshel's also there. He's playing on the same team, the Bourne Braves, and he's batting 250, so not as well as he was earlier. Still ease. Now here's another one. Carson Willis. He's doing good. He's over at the Rocky Mountain Collegiate Baseball League. Batting 355. His on base isn't very good, 373. But he's slugging 565, 2 home runs, 5 doubles, 8 runs, 16 RBIs. Wow, 16 RBIs already. But he's kind of like Cahillo. He's out there striking out a lot. So yeah, they got a lot of good talent going into the summer ball leagues.
Yeah, so Brenton Clark is in so far through 64 at bats is hitting 359 out in California. Had 27 runs, 23 hits, no home runs, but 9 RBIs, and has taken 26 walks. And only struck out 8 times.
Yeah, that's the thing is like the other guys that I named off, Willis and like Cahillo, they're doing just as well at the plate, hitting wise, but they're striking out so much. Seeing him only strike out 7 times, that many times in that many games, was it 21 or 22? 2 games. Because what I'm reading, it says 21 games.
Yeah.
Still, I mean, that's a third of your games you're getting a strikeout versus, one every single game.
Right.
That's really, really good.
So, guys are performing and developing in these leagues. So it's going to be interesting to see what these guys come back from and how well they have improved their game from last year. And can they break into some of those starting roles? I mean, a guy that, we've talked about that, it'll be interesting to see if he's not guaranteed, but gets a fair shake right off the bat next season is like a guy like Reese Robinette. He's not doing any fall, any summer ball, but, down the stretch for Arkansas, when he had to come in and play first base, he did pretty well. So he's a guy I'd like to see have a full season under his belt next year in a starting role. But it's going to be interesting to see how these things shake out, especially because the infield is getting pretty crowded when you think Souza's going to be healthy. You're going to have Kozel back. You've got Souza. You've got these guys that you've brought in, Pompey, Grego. And so you're going to have to find a spot for all these guys. And it's going to be interesting to see, who gets shifted where. Do you have Kozel playing more second base or first base? Because, once Robinette started playing, Kozel shifted more to second base. I think is more towards his natural position because I remember them talking about when he was playing first base for a little bit before Souza got hurt that he kind of had to be taught how to play first base. So,
yeah. And like you said, it's getting really crowded. I don't know, man. I think they have some because I mean Brent Iredale also he can come back, right? He's not out of eligibility, and unless they draft him high based on potential, I don't know if he's going to go that high, and he
Right.
might come back too. So yeah, we have so much just it's an embarrassment of riches, really. I mean, it's kind of like Alabama football, but baseball. We just have so much talent we don't know what to do with. And we got guys sitting on the bench that are just as good, if not better, than most other people who are starting around the country.
Right.
So I don't know. But they're gonna put whoever is the best out there and go with it. I think Kojal doesn't need to move from second. I think he was doing a great job there. He had that miss at the very end of the game against LSU. So, but that could either, that's just good hitting. That's just lucky hitting.
Well,
That's
see,
what
and
it is.
that's where it's going to be interested to see what happens because, that's Souza's natural spot's a second baseman. So,
right.
Where do you stick him? Because we were talking about like a guy like Pompey or, Ruiz could play third. Well, it's one of those things where we got to find out who's going to be here next year. Because if not, it's like I in my head am trying to picture where these pieces are going to fit and how this infield is going to look. And right now, you've got a lot of conflicting players. Whereas, like, yeah, to your point, do you keep Kojal at second and do you move Souza to third? Where does he play? Do you and if you keep Souza at second, well, you move Kojal to first. Well, that bumps Robinette back to the bench, and there's a lot of things to be figured out. So
yeah,
hopefully the Major League Draft will help us figure out some of these questions. But then I don't know how much it'll answer some of these infield questions, but we'll just have to see.
Yeah, it's definitely something to ponder. But I don't know, man. I just really like this what Kojal did at second, and it's hard for me to, even though I think Nolan Souza is going to be great no matter what, but you would have to start thinking about putting him somewhere else. I don't know.
Right.
We'll have to see, and it also depends on how they develop over the summer, because Kojal is out there playing summer ball, and Nolan Souza isn't. So we'll have to see how that turns out.
Yeah, I'm sure Souza's probably still doing a little rehab with his shoulder, so
right.
We'll have to
and
see.
It's unfortunate, but that's just the way that it is sometimes,
Right. We'll just have to see how, like, is he when it comes to fall camp, the fall ball that they have, is he rusty? Is he just still trying to, get back to 100% health in terms of that? Whereas you have Kojal that's ready to go, been playing fall ball and is feeling good,
Right.
So
right, we'll have to see.
But over this weekend, Arkansas baseball wasn't the only Arkansas team getting some commitments. Arkansas football grabs a commitment from a Texas standout wide receiver down in East Texas, with the addition of 3-star wide receiver Keyman Henderson. He's a guy that is 6'3", 190, had a breakout junior season for the Bulldogs down in Texas. And he led Texas high school powerhouse in receiving yards during the 2024 season with a 15-1 overall record and a 4A D2 state championship, which was the program's 10th. He recorded 64 receptions for 1,085 yards and 18 touchdowns as a junior. And he did have offers from Kansas State, Kentucky, Houston, TCU, SMU, Mississippi State, and a few more. So he's a guy that very much possesses the skill set of a Bobby Petrino wide receiver. Long, lanky, has some size, has some speed, but a guy that, is going to be coming in and it, I don't know. It's interesting to me because it boosts Arkansas's 26 commitments for the next 2026 class. But the interesting thing to me is you sign this 3-star guy out of Texas, but you withdraw an offer from a 4-star legacy wide receiver. I don't know if we hit on that last week, but that's the weirdest thing to me. You earlier in the week, you get a commitment from 4-star linebacker JJ Bush, the second year in a row that Coach Tebow gets a huge out-of-state linebacker. But to me, it's like you announced the commitment of a 3-star wide receiver, but you pull the scholarship offer from a 4-star Arkansas wide receiver that is a legacy player from his dad and grandparents and things like that. So it just doesn't make sense to me.
Yeah, like I think there's room enough for both of them.
Right.
Like I think that you still want this kid, Camion Henderson. I like what I see out of him, and I'll go into that in a second. But at the same time, you can't say no to a legacy guy of that quality. You just can't say no to that. There's no rhyme reason for it at all. Like he can say no to you all you want. He can,
right?
But
you don't.
They're always right. There's no, especially this early. It's July, right? They don't sign until December. There's just, I don't know. It doesn't make sense to me. And I heard, through the grapevine that there were concerns. I don't know what concerns you're talking about, but even then, I mean, I don't know. Unless he's out there, doing illegal stuff, being a hoodlum, I don't know why you would even pull it. And it doesn't look like that. He comes from a good family.
Right. And to me, it's not a good look because it's like one of the biggest things when you're recruiting, and you've heard numerous coaches mention this, not just Arkansas coaches, but all around the country, is like, first and foremost, you want to get as many as your the top in-state talented guys you can. And then you work your way out. Yeah. But clearly that's not the case. We've seen the number of Arkansas kids that, out of the past 2 to 3 years, the top 4, 5, 6, 7 Arkansas kids aren't even coming to Arkansas. So, on one hand, I'm not surprised to see this type of situation happen. But on the other hand, I'm still, kind of just shaking my hand, and that raises red flags. Like, why are we not putting more emphasis on getting these top in-state kids and then, filling out the rest of your needs with out-of-state kids? It just, and I get sometimes money's a factor.
He's not an in-state guy, though. He's a legacy, but he's not. He's from Texas, I believe.
Well, and I guess
he's basically an in-state guy.
Exactly. That's why I was going to say I kind of group him in, because when your dad, your grandparents went here, played here, that type of thing, it's, almost makes it feel like he's an in-state kid. And so, I love getting like these out-of-state guys and things like that, and kind of robbing some talent from out of state. But take care of business on the home front, if you will, and get those in-state guys to want to play here. And I think that's something I'm going to be interested to see as we go forward into next year's class and kind of how this season goes. It's like, at the end of the day, having an in-state kid that's talented is not going to hurt you unless they just absolutely don't want to be here, or they are absolutely just wanting to take the money from somewhere else.
Right.
Like if you can get somewhere close to what, say, whoever else is offering them, why would you not want to stay closer to family, play closer to home, things like that?
Right. And here's the thing. They may go and get their bag and come back like Courtney Crutchfield. So there's always
a possibility in today's age with the transfer portal. You can't rule anything out.
Right. But let's go back to Henderson, because I don't think he is incredibly accurately rated right here. Because if you look back at his ratings, they don't start until like the beginning of this year. And if you look at the 24/7 composite ratings, they don't start until like last month or a couple months ago. So I think he wasn't an incredibly visible recruit to begin with. I don't know if he goes to like 7-on-7s and does all the, pay to play kind of things that you kind of have to do in recruiting nowadays to be rated really high. That's kind of why Traylon Burks, even though he was probably a 5-star type talent, wasn't rated as a 5-star type talent because he never did anything in the summer like that. I don't know if it's the same case with Henderson here, but if you look at, just go to 247 and read what the scouting analyst has to say about him. He says, he's got great release for being a 6'3", 6'4" guy. He has quote, admittedly stunning good 40 shuttle tests during the spring of 2025. So, and what I saw, I've heard he was hitting like 4.4 in the 40. So, he's going to be a fast kid. Now, whether or not he's got hands, I don't know. But if you look at what he did last year with his high school team, I mean, 1,085 yards, 18 touchdowns, 2 touchdowns and 77 yards came in the state championship game in Texas. I mean, the kid's good. I'm not mad that, like, on a talent basis that they chose him over what's his name?
Chase Campbell.
I'm blanking. Campbell. Yeah, I'm not, like, talent aspect, I'm not super upset that they chose him over him. But I am upset that they didn't choose Campbell because of the historic significance there, right?
Right.
Like, Campbell would want to come here and he would want to play here. And he would have also, no one ever really talks about it, but there's that pressure not only to perform at school, but from your family too. Because you have your granddad, who was the first black man to play for Arkansas football. And then your father, who also was a pretty good safety for Arkansas football. You can't just come here and poop the bed, so to speak. You got to come in here and perform, or you're going to get it every single Thanksgiving for the rest of your life. There's a little bit of extra pressure there, and I don't know. I think they just missed on it. I don't know what to say.
I see what you're getting at there, and it's tough because, I mean, it's like, with Traylon Burks, not anything specific family wise, but he kind of lived up to the hype of the long line of Warren wide receivers that come up to Arkansas and just show out. So I don't know. It's interesting to think about when you look at that was the big kind of hot topic over the past week or so, and then you have the announcement for this kid, and like we said, it has nothing to do with either of these kids specifically. It's the kind of choices, if you will, what this coaching staff is kind of making, prioritizing, things like that kind of make you question some things.
And it's not even just the football team. It's the entire athletic department as a whole. I mean, look at the whole Kevin Trainer thing.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know what this move from, like, the history, and I'm not even one of those guys that's like big on tradition, or like, I love the traditions in Arkansas, but I'm not opposed to change some things, like, the entrance into the football games. I think it's a little old school. I think they could have something a little bit different and a little bit more fun, a little bit more hype to, really help with recruiting. Plus, they could really change some of the lights to make it look more like Bryce Williams, the South Carolina Stadium. I think they could do all that and still keep some of the tradition, but I don't know what this move is, to move from people who have traditionally, like, been what Arkansas is to change it into whatever they're trying to change it into now. And I don't really like it.
Yeah, it really raises some questions and eyebrows and red flags and things of that nature when, it's like all this revenue sharing and stuff like that. But it's like, oh, wait, well, we still got to cut back to make sure financially everything's going to work. It's just like, yeah, to your point, it's like, what are we actually doing?
Right.
And I think that kind of goes back to we talked about with the press conference we had with the GM. Really kind of not a lot to break down there because you didn't get a lot of straight answers, and it kind of piques that question of, well, like, what are we doing? Like, you can't tell us, but then you also can't give us answers that you actually can say, here's what we're doing.
Right. Well, I mean, I still understand it why they can't do that right now, because you can't give out your entire secrets.
Right.
But at the same time, it's just, and I don't know how much of that was like a Remy Cofield thing. That's his last name, right? Cofield.
Yes.
I think it was more of a 100-year check thing, with like the Kevin Trainer leaving. But like, it's one thing to say, oh, we're doing it for money, which every single program across the country is doing. I completely understand that, and it sucks. It really does. But that's just the way that the cookie crumbles sometimes, But at the same time, like, try to negotiate with the dude, right? There was a piece that I read that said that it pretty much came out of nowhere. Like, they didn't have a clue. And if someone who is as, as loyal to the university as Kevin Trainer is, I guarantee you he would have tried to work with them, right?
Right.
Say, hey, we need something, right? Like, we want you to keep your same position, but we need to cut back on whatever your salary is, blah, 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 this, that, and the other. Or, you know what? Make cuts somewhere else at the same time. Like, it just, the decision-making doesn't make sense. It's not a very personable decision-making. It's more like based on the numbers. And then, to me, it's going to come back and bite them in the butt, too. It's not, I don't know. Like, I want them to run everything like a CEO, but at the same time, you have to know where you're at, right?
Yeah, it's very interesting. I don't know what to make of it. Some people are like, well, is it some weird things going on? So we'll have to see. We're making all these moves to help, but do we see any change in terms of the reason for making these moves, whether it be to help the university financially and NIL and in all the things they talked about when they listed why they're making these cuts. So you're doing this, but doing this, we're going to expect the performance and the changes to actually show that it was worth it, if you will.
Right. And that's the thing too, is that everybody's doing it, so there's going to be losers and winners. And Arkansas hasn't really been on the winner side of it.
Right.
So it's just, I don't know, man. It's rough.
It's weird.
And and this whole revenue sharing thing is just a little, I feel like it's gonna even the playing field just a little bit too, but at the same time, I don't know, man. It still feels like a step too short when it comes to it, because you're not a professional league, but you're playing like one, and then you're trying to keep yourself away from that too. But I don't know. There's still a lot of room for abuse and incompetence to ruin some things. So we'll just have to see.
Yeah, very true. I think that probably about covers, all the big things in Razorback Nation this weekend. Right here at the end, greetings, gentlemen, from Pope of LSU.
That's a great way to spell Pope. There's a whole lot of things about LSU that I don't like, but the way that they do their spelling with their French spelling, I really do like that. I think it's pretty cool.
But anything else you got before we decide to get out of here?
No, man, I think that's about it.
I was about to say, we'll be back on schedule with our regular show on Thursday. This week, we're going to start with our position breakdowns with the quarterback position. Not going to be a ton to talk about there. As we know, Taylor Green's going to be back. He's going to be your starter. But the real question is, behind him, what does your depth look like? And, KJ Jackson, QB2. So is that what we're going to see, or is it potentially going to be Grayson Wilson? How do these guys perform, through spring ball, things of that nature? We'll dive into that on Thursday. So mark your calendars, get ready for that on Thursday. And with that, we're going to wrap up. Don't forget to like and subscribe to the show on YouTube, Apple Podcasts, Spotify. You can find us across all the social media networks, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, X, whatever you want to call it, Blue Sky if you're on there. We're all the above. And so make sure to hit that like and subscribe button. Also hit that bell. That way you don't miss any time that we go live. So with that, Austin, myself, we're going to get out of here. Everybody have a great beginning of your week. And we'll catch you guys on Thursday to start breaking down the quarterbacks for Arkansas in 2025.